For more than 4 years, the disappearance of Summer Wells has remained one of Tennessee's most closely followed missing child cases. Her story has drawn national attention not because of speculation, but because of the many unanswered questions that still surround it. As investigators continue their work, new activity has once again taken place on Van Hill Road, a location not far from the Wells family home. This renewed movement has prompted many to look back at what is known, what has been confirmed, and why the case continues to stay active. Summer Wells was reported missing from her Hawkins County home in June 2021, sparking an immediate response from state and federal agencies. Despite extensive early searches covering thousands of acres, no confirmed trace was ever located. Over the years, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has said that multiple possibilities still remain open, and that they are committed to following every credible lead. The case has seen public interest grow steadily, with many wanting accurate updates rather than unverified theories. Recently, investigators returned to the Van Hill Road area after receiving a new lead that required on-site review. Although officials have not released details about the nature of the tip, the confirmed presence of agents highlights that the investigation is still very much ongoing. This development has renewed public attention, as it marks one of the latest verified movements in the case. Each official update, no matter how small, carries weight in a situation where confirmed information has remained limited for years. As interest continues to rise, many viewers seek clear, factual reporting on what has actually been confirmed by authorities. This video focuses only on verified details: what investigators have publicly stated, what actions have been officially documented, and what is known about the most recent follow-up on Van Hill Road. The goal is to provide clarity and context in a case that has often been surrounded by speculation. Here is the latest, carefully examined and clearly presented. The disappearance of Summer Moon Wells began on a late afternoon in June 2021, when a routine day at her home on Van Hill Road unexpectedly turned into one of Tennessee's most enduring missing child cases. Early details provided by officials showed how quickly the situation developed, as initial uncertainty soon led to a search operation involving multiple agencies. Understanding how the first hours unfolded remains essential to following the rest of the investigation. On June 15, 2021, Summer was last seen at her home in the rural community of Hawkins County. Reports from that day indicate she had been helping her mother and grandmother with small tasks before going inside the house. Moments later, she could not be located. When her family could not find her, they contacted authorities, beginning a sequence of events that would bring national attention to the area. Deputies from the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office were the first to respond. Within minutes, more personnel arrived, and search teams were organized to begin sweeping the immediate surroundings. The terrain around the home consisted of steep hills, dense brush, and shifting pathways, all of which required a coordinated approach. From the start, the area's geography posed challenges that shaped the investigation. That evening, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation issued an endangered child alert. Just 12 hours later, it was escalated to an Amber Alert. This rapid upgrade signaled the seriousness with which authorities viewed the case. It also allowed law enforcement agencies across the state to access additional resources and public notification systems. Summer's physical description and clothing details were shared widely. In the following days, the search effort expanded dramatically. More than 3,000 acres were examined by air and ground teams using helicopters, drones, scent dogs, and specialized units trained for difficult environments. Volunteers joined official teams in navigating rugged, uneven terrain. Despite the scale of the operation, authorities said that no confirmed trace of Summer was found during these initial efforts. During the early days of the investigation, one detail surfaced regarding a red or maroon Toyota pickup truck with ladders on the back, reportedly seen in the area around the time Summer went missing. Investigators took the information seriously and requested help identifying the vehicle. However, they later stated they were unsure whether the truck had any connection to the case, as no evidence linked it directly to the disappearance. Another early tip came from a nearby resident who reported hearing what she believed was a scream about an hour before Summer was discovered missing. Officials confirmed they investigated the statement, documented it, and compared it to other information gathered at the time. The detail did not bring investigators closer to answers, but it became part of the case history as an early, unconfirmed observation. Throughout the first week, the TBI emphasized that all possibilities remained open. Without clear evidence pointing to a specific scenario, investigators could not rule out any direction. They encouraged the public to report information but urged caution about drawing conclusions without verified facts. This message became a guiding theme as the case progressed. Media coverage quickly expanded beyond Tennessee. News reports across the country highlighted the size of the search effort, the challenging terrain, and the limited number of confirmed details. Press briefings from the sheriff's office and TBI provided updates as teams continued their work, though many questions remained unanswered. As the investigation grew, federal partners including the FBI joined the effort. Their involvement added specialized resources and analytical support. Working together, agencies reviewed maps, timelines, and statements to establish the most accurate picture of the events surrounding Summer's disappearance. Multi-agency coordination became one of the defining features of the investigation. During this time, the Wells family made several public statements. They described the timeline of the day, their search efforts, and their hopes for finding Summer. These interviews contributed to public awareness but did not change the official direction of the investigation, as authorities continued to rely solely on confirmed information. When the first large-scale search period concluded, investigators transitioned into a more targeted approach. This phase involved reviewing earlier findings, analyzing tips, and evaluating areas that may require revisiting. Officials stated that this shift was routine for long-term investigations and did not reflect a reduction in urgency. As weeks passed, the TBI continued to release public updates. Many of these emphasized that despite extensive work, no verified evidence had been discovered that could conclusively explain what happened. Still, the agency reiterated its commitment to evaluating every incoming lead and cross-checking information with previously gathered data. Social media activities surrounding the case increased rapidly. Discussions, commentary, and theories spread widely, often surpassing the amount of verified information available. The TBI cautioned the public to avoid relying on unsupported speculation and encouraged anyone with credible information to contact the agency directly through official channels. Months after the disappearance, the TBI released the first age progression image of Summer. The image aimed to help the public visualize how she might appear as she grew older. These graphics are a standard tool in long-term missing child cases and serve as reminders that the investigation remains active even when few updates are available. The release of the age progression photo brought renewed attention to the case. News outlets revisited the story, summarizing what was known and highlighting the need for continued awareness. For investigators, the image provided another opportunity for potential recognition in situations where the original photo might no longer match current appearance. Throughout these developments, the TBI maintained a consistent message. The agency would share verified information when it became available. They noted that not all investigative steps could be made public and that transparency required balancing public awareness with investigative integrity. This approach helped maintain clarity during periods without major updates. In Hawkins County, the community continued to follow the case closely. Posters, signs, and reminders remained visible in the area, symbolizing ongoing concern and hope. Public involvement stayed strong as the first year approached its end, demonstrating how deeply the disappearance affected residents. Investigators repeatedly stated that they continued to review tips, test information, and examine new submissions. Even though many leads did not produce results, each contributed to the agency's understanding of the case. Persistence remained a central theme as investigators worked through both fresh and historical data. By the end of the first year, the initial phase of the investigation was firmly established. Extensive searches, numerous tips, multi-agency cooperation, and a lack of confirmed answers. This foundation set the stage for the later developments that would appear in subsequent years leading up to renewed activity that would emerge in 2025. As the first year transitioned into the second, investigators continued their steady work on the Summer Wells case. The TBI reiterated that the investigation remained active, with agents reviewing new information whenever it was submitted. Even without major public breakthroughs, the agency confirmed that progress in long-term cases often comes gradually, through consistent evaluation rather than sudden discoveries. In early 2022, officials revisited previously searched areas as part of routine investigative practice. Seasonal changes allowed teams to re-examine places that had been difficult to access during the initial searches. This process reflected the thoroughness of the operation, demonstrating that investigators were committed to covering every possibility, even in locations already reviewed. The geography surrounding the Wells home remained an important factor. The steep hills, dense vegetation, and layered tree lines required repeated examinations. Investigators described the environment as challenging even for experienced search teams, reinforcing why some areas needed more than one visit. These details shaped the investigative approach well into the following years. Throughout 2022, cooperation among agencies continued. The TBI worked closely with the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and federal partners, sharing information and comparing findings from multiple perspectives. This collaboration ensured that the investigation benefited from specialized resources, including technical analysis, mapping reviews, and data comparison tools. During this period, public interest in the case remained strong. National media revisited the story on anniversaries and when official updates were released. Although many reports repeated early details, they helped maintain awareness and reminded audiences that the case was still active. Accurate reporting played a significant role in keeping verified information visible. In mid-2023, the TBI released a new age progression image of Summer, showing what she might look like at 8 years old. This update generated renewed attention across the country. Age progression images are developed through detailed analysis, and their purpose is to increase recognition potential over time, especially when a case spans several years. The release of the updated image also illustrated the TBI's continued commitment to the investigation. These images are not produced automatically. They reflect active case management and a belief that public involvement remains important. By sharing the new photo, the agency reminded viewers that the case still required awareness, even after 2 years had passed. During this phase, the Wells family continued making public statements about the case. They shared their perspective in interviews, including national television appearances. While their comments drew significant attention, investigators noted that conclusions must be based on confirmed evidence. The focus remained on accurate facts rather than interpretations or assumptions. News outlets also reported on the family's situation following the disappearance. Authorities confirmed that Summer's siblings had been placed under the care of Child Services months earlier, as noted in multiple articles. Though officials could not provide further details due to privacy regulations, the development was widely documented and became part of the public timeline. As 2023 progressed, national interest in the case continued. The story appeared in several major publications and broadcasts, often summarizing what was known and emphasizing the unanswered questions. This consistent media attention helped maintain visibility, reminding people that the investigation had not concluded. Investigators reiterated that they had not determined what happened to Summer. Without verified evidence pointing to a specific explanation, the TBI remained open to all possibilities. This transparency helped set realistic expectations for the public, especially during periods when few new details could be shared. Anniversary articles in 2023 and 2024 provided opportunities for reporters to revisit the timeline. These pieces often highlighted the extensive search efforts, the early tips, and the ongoing commitment from authorities. They served both as summaries for new audiences and reminders for longtime followers of the case. Community involvement also continued through 2023. Posters and banners remained visible in Hawkins County, placed by residents who wanted to keep the case active in public memory. These displays showed that concern for Summer had not faded, even as the initial search efforts transitioned to long-term investigation work. Officials continued to urge the public to report credible information. They emphasized the importance of using official channels, such as the TBI's hotline, rather than sharing unverified claims online. This guidance reflected the agency's commitment to maintaining accuracy and preventing unnecessary complications in the investigation. During numerous interviews in 2024, investigators explained that missing child cases can remain open for many years. They noted that long-term cases often depend on new tips or changes in technology that allow for more effective data comparison. By keeping the case active, authorities positioned themselves to respond quickly if new information emerged. Behind the scenes, investigators continued reviewing files, timelines, and statements collected over the years. With technological advancements in mapping, analysis, and data systems, information from the early stages of the case could be re-evaluated with updated tools. This internal work was not always visible to the public, but it contributed significantly to the ongoing effort. Meanwhile, social media activity remained high. Many users shared updates, commentary, and reflections on the case. While some posts aimed to raise awareness, others involved speculation. For this reason, the TBI consistently reminded the public that only verified information should be used to understand the case's status. Toward the end of 2024, the TBI reaffirmed that the case was still open and that agents were prepared to investigate any credible tip that came in. This message was important for maintaining public confidence, especially after years without confirmed findings. The agency stressed that persistence was essential. The enduring attention surrounding the case underscored how complicated long-term missing person investigations can be. Each lead had to be evaluated carefully, compared with early data, and examined for potential significance. Even when a tip did not result in progress, it still contributed to the overall understanding of the case. By the time 2025 approached, the investigation had spanned more than 4 years. Despite the challenges and the absence of confirmed breakthroughs, the case remained active, supported by continued community interest, media visibility, and the long-standing commitment of investigators. These elements set the stage for the renewed activity that would soon unfold on Van Hill Road. As the case entered 2024, renewed public interest began building once again. News outlets revisited the timeline of Summer Wells' disappearance, summarizing the major facts for audiences who were either returning to the story or discovering it for the first time. The combination of anniversary coverage and small official updates helped bring the case back into focus across national networks. During this period, the public increasingly sought reliable information rather than speculation. Investigators, aware of this growing demand for clarity, emphasized their continued commitment to reviewing tips and following up on any credible information. Even without major developments, the reassurance that the investigation remained active helped sustain public engagement. The media landscape surrounding the case evolved noticeably. Many outlets shifted toward factual summaries, highlighting the known details from 2021 through 2024. By focusing on verified information, these reports helped counteract the spread of unconfirmed claims that sometimes complicated public understanding of the case. In East Tennessee, the disappearance continued to be a topic of conversation in local communities. Many residents remained aware of the case, and discussions often resurfaced during community gatherings or local events. This ongoing attention demonstrated how deeply the case had affected the area and reinforced the importance of keeping verified updates available. In early 2024, social media activity increased again around the time of Summer's birthday. Many users shared age-progressed images released by the TBI, along with messages of support and hope. These posts often included reminders to contact the agency's hotline if anyone had information relevant to the case. The reappearance of the case in public timelines also came with updated summaries from regional reporters. These stories emphasized the scale of the original search, describing how more than 3,000 acres were examined during the first days. Revisiting these early efforts helped audiences appreciate the complexity and challenges investigators faced from the beginning. As renewed coverage circulated, many people reflected on the limited number of confirmed leads. The vehicle detail and the reported scream remained among the most commonly referenced pieces of early information, even though neither had been connected to new findings. Their presence in the public memory illustrated how little confirmed evidence had emerged. The TBI, recognizing the renewed attention, maintained its consistent communication style, cautious, factual, and centered on transparency. Officials reiterated that investigators had not ruled out any possibilities and that the case required patience due to its long-term nature. This message helped stabilize public expectations during high-interest periods. The Wells family also became the subject of renewed media interest. Interviews conducted years earlier resurfaced, and excerpts circulated widely online. Although the family's statements continued to be part of the narrative, investigators emphasized that the direction of the case depended on verified evidence rather than public interpretation of interviews. National news outlets revisited the case during broader discussions about missing children. These segments often included Summer's photo, the age-progressed images, and a summary of the search efforts. While brief, these mentions helped ensure that the case remained visible beyond Tennessee. In mid-2024, anniversary coverage amplified once more. Journalists reported on the 3-year mark of Summer's disappearance, summarizing the timeline from 2021 to 2024. These reports reiterated that no arrests had been made and no person had been officially labeled as a suspect, further highlighting the complexity of the case. Some outlets focused on the emotional impact the case had on the community. Interviews with residents demonstrated how closely people followed the story and how strongly they hoped for answers. These segments added a human element to the timeline, reminding viewers that the case extended beyond investigative reports. The TBI continued to encourage people with any information to come forward. Even after years of investigative work, they stressed that long-term cases could benefit from new leads that might emerge at unexpected times. This call for tips became a routine part of nearly every official statement. As the year progressed, conversations on social media again became active. Many creators focused on gathering official statements and summarizing them for new audiences. This push for fact-based content reflected changes in how the public engaged with long-term investigations, emphasizing accuracy over speculation. In late 2024, national coverage began preparing to revisit the case as it approached its 4th year. Reporters contacted local authorities, requesting updates or confirmation on the status of the investigation. These inquiries prompted officials to reiterate that the case was still open and that no scenario had been ruled out. While large-scale searches did not occur during this period, investigators continued reviewing previously gathered information behind the scenes. They analyzed earlier statements, examined digital logs where available, and compared new tips to historical data. This ongoing review demonstrated the methodical approach authorities maintained throughout the investigation. The combination of public visibility and investigative persistence helped prepare the ground for later developments. Many people began following the case more closely, particularly as 2025 approached and media outlets anticipated covering the 4th anniversary of Summer's disappearance. By early 2025, online discussions once again surged. Users shared TBI contact information, news articles, and personal reflections on the case. This renewed activity played a role in amplifying awareness of the investigation, ensuring that potential leads reached the right channels. As attention grew, reporters studied the timeline of events leading up to 2025, noting how few confirmed updates had surfaced over the years. This context made any new movement, no matter how small, significant. The foundation laid by years of steady public awareness ensured that official announcements would receive widespread visibility. All of these elements, the media coverage, public engagement, community concern, and ongoing investigative work, set the stage for what would soon become one of the most important confirmed updates in the timeline: the renewed activity on Van Hill Road. This development marked the transition into the next major phase of the case. As the investigation into the disappearance of Summer Wells moved into its long-term phase, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation continued to rely on a structured, methodical system designed specifically for complex missing child cases. This strategy involved reviewing, organizing, and comparing every piece of information collected since the first day of the search. Even without major breakthroughs, each step contributed to a clearer understanding of the case. One of the core elements of the TBI's approach was the continuous evaluation of tips. Every submission, no matter how small, was documented, categorized, and reviewed. Investigators have explained that long-term cases often rely on this steady flow of information, and even minor details can help identify patterns when compared to older reports. Another significant part of the TBI's strategy involved returning to earlier statements and timelines. Investigators periodically revisited interviews from the first days of the investigation, confirming details and checking for inconsistencies or new context. This practice helps ensure that the earliest moments in the case remain accurate and relevant as the investigation progresses. Digital analysis also played an important role. Advances in technology allowed investigators to review phone data, mapping tools, and communication records more effectively than when the case first began. As technology improved, information collected years earlier could be re-examined with higher accuracy, providing new potential insights without requiring new evidence. The TBI worked closely with the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office in maintaining coordination across all departments involved. Consistent communication prevented duplication of efforts and ensured that investigators across agencies had access to the same verified information. This cooperation formed the backbone of the long-term strategy. The involvement of federal partners, including the FBI, added further structure to the investigation. Federal agencies provided technical support, specialized analysis, and access to national databases that could compare information across multiple states. Their participation strengthened the investigative framework and ensured that the case remained part of a broader network of missing child investigations. Throughout the long-term phase, the TBI placed emphasis on documentation. Case files, reports, maps, and digital logs were updated regularly. This allowed investigators to track changes in the case, identify repeating details, and maintain accuracy as more information accumulated over the years. This thorough record-keeping was essential for maintaining momentum. One of the challenges in long-term investigations is the volume of information. Over time, cases can accumulate thousands of tips, each requiring review. Investigators manage this by categorizing leads into levels of priority based on credibility, relevance, and connection to earlier reports. This system helped ensure that critical information received timely attention. The TBI also maintained an open line of communication with the public. Regular updates, though often brief, were shared to confirm the status of the investigation. Officials explained that not all details could be released, but they reaffirmed that transparency remained important. These updates helped distinguish verified progress from rumors circulating online. Investigators continued to rely on age progression photos as a key component of their long-term strategy. These images were released to encourage public awareness and assist with recognition in the event of new sightings. By updating the images periodically, the TBI ensured that the public had the most accurate representation possible of how summer might look. While the TBI's strategy remained steady, the agency acknowledged the emotional toll long-term cases can have on families and communities. They emphasized the importance of patience and reaffirmed that cases do not close simply due to time. This approach reassured many who feared that the passage of years meant a decline in attention. Many elements of the investigation involved re-examining areas previously searched. Dense terrain can change over time, revealing new paths or clearing areas previously inaccessible. Returning to these areas is a standard part of long-term investigations and reflects the TBI's commitment to thoroughness. The TBI also evaluated past search maps, comparing them with new geographic information. This process sometimes highlighted parts of the terrain that needed closer review. Even when no new evidence surfaced, the process ensured that no area was overlooked due to early limitations in visibility or accessibility. Long-term investigations often require collaboration with specialized teams trained in unseen aspects of casework. For the Summer Wells case, the TBI continued consulting experts in child disappearances, behavior patterns, and geographic profiling. These perspectives helped investigators refine their approach and consider new angles. Public awareness campaigns also played a role in the strategy. Posters, digital notices, and media reminders kept the case visible across Tennessee. These efforts helped maintain attention so that if anyone encountered information relevant to the case, they would know how to report it through official channels. Investigators also continued monitoring national databases that track missing children, unidentified individuals, and related cases. By keeping Summer's information active in these systems, authorities ensured that any potential connection would be flagged automatically. This ongoing process expanded the reach of the investigation far beyond Tennessee. Despite the lengthy timeline, the TBI maintained a balanced approach between thoroughness and caution. Officials repeatedly explained that any conclusion must be supported by confirmed evidence. This stance helped keep the investigation grounded, especially during periods when public speculation surged. Over the years, the agency continued to follow leads presented by the public. Each lead required careful analysis to determine whether it aligned with previously gathered information. Although many leads did not result in significant progress, their review contributed to understanding the overall pattern of the case. As 2025 approached, investigators prepared for the possibility of increased public interest, knowing that anniversaries often bring new attention. This awareness ensured that the TBI would be ready to respond quickly to incoming tips or inquiries should they arise. The groundwork laid over for years positioned the agency for renewed activity. The TBI's long-term strategy built on consistency, collaboration, and careful evaluation created the structure that would support the next major development, the confirmed investigative activity on Van Hill Road in November 2025. This event marked a significant moment in the timeline and demonstrated that the case remained a high priority. Throughout the investigation, the Wells family remained one of the most visible parts of the public narrative. Their statements, interviews, and appearances offered insight into their experiences during the early days after Summer's disappearance. Even though investigators emphasized that cases must rely on confirmed evidence, the family's perspective continued shaping how many viewers understood the timeline. In the first weeks after Summer went missing, the family gave several interviews describing the day of the disappearance. They explained their recollections of Summer helping with outdoor tasks before going inside the home, and they spoke about the moment they realized she was no longer there. These early interviews became widely referenced in future coverage. As the investigation continued, both Don and Candace shared their belief that Summer did not simply wander off. They stated that the search efforts around the property were extensive and that they felt she would have been found if she had remained close to home. While this perspective gained attention, investigators maintained that all possibilities remained open without verified evidence. The family also participated in national interviews, including an appearance on a major talk show. These interviews reached large audiences, causing more people across the country to become aware of the case. Although these moments amplified visibility, they also contributed to increased public discussion and interpretation of the family's statements. With heightened public interest came significant online commentary. The family spoke about experiencing negative attention, including criticism and confrontations in public. They described how challenging it was to manage the emotional impact while also hoping for answers about Summer. These experiences were mentioned in multiple news reports focused on the social aspect of the case. The family also confirmed that the Department of Children's Services became involved months after the disappearance, resulting in Summer's siblings being placed into care. While details were not shared publicly due to privacy laws, this development was documented in multiple local and national news articles, becoming an acknowledged part of the case timeline. As years passed, the family periodically released public statements through social media or in response to anniversary reports. These messages often thanked investigators for their continued work and asked the public to stay aware of the case. They also expressed hope that Summer would eventually be found and emphasized the importance of verified information. In these statements, the family frequently addressed the emotional challenges they faced. They described the difficulty of living with unanswered questions and the pressure of ongoing public scrutiny. Their perspective gave audiences a sense of how deeply the disappearance affected the household beyond the initial search efforts. Some of the family's comments focused on their frustration with the lack of clear progress. They noted that despite repeated searches, leads, and interviews, no definitive answers had emerged. This view, while reflecting their personal experience, was treated carefully by investigators, who explained that long-term cases often unfold slowly. The family also clarified their position in response to rumors and speculation that circulated online. They emphasized that they supported the investigation and were cooperating with authorities. The TBI consistently stated that no family members had been publicly identified as suspects, reinforcing the importance of sticking to confirmed information. Public interest in the family's perspective often grew during interviews where they discussed their hopes for the search. These emotional segments, widely shared on social media, helped maintain national awareness. Many viewers connected with the family's appeals, which often ended with reminders for people to report any credible information. In addition to interviews, the family addressed the difficulties of dealing with online commentary. They spoke about the impact that speculation had on their daily lives, mentioning moments where they felt overwhelmed by accusations from strangers. This dimension of the case highlighted the challenges families face when missing child cases gain widespread attention. The family's statements also included descriptions of their memories with Summer, often focusing on her personality and daily activities. These reflections helped humanize the story and reminded audiences of the child at the center of the timeline. Media outlets frequently use these descriptions in anniversary reports. Over time, the family expressed appreciation for the age progression images released by the TBI. They said these images were difficult to see emotionally but important for keeping the search active. Their responses showed how the investigation continued influencing the family on a personal level, even years later. During 2024, the family shared additional statements around Summer's birthday and the anniversary of her disappearance. These posts often focused on remembrance, hope, and gratitude toward search teams. They continued to encourage the community to stay attentive to official updates and report tips directly to the TBI hotline. As public interest increased leading into 2025, the family addressed questions about their decision to reduce contact with the media. They explained that discussing the case publicly became emotionally difficult and that they preferred waiting for official updates from investigators. This decision aligned with their desire to avoid unnecessary attention or speculation. In late 2025, following renewed investigative activity on Van Hill Road, the family released a short statement through social media. They clarified that they were not providing interviews or detailed comments and expressed that additional discussion could create unnecessary drama or emotional strain. They encouraged followers to rely on updates directly from the TBI. This approach reflected the ongoing effort from the family to balance privacy with cooperation. By directing the public toward official sources, they supported the investigative process while reducing misunderstandings and speculation. Their stance helped maintain clarity during moments when interest in the case surged. Even after years had passed, the family continued to emphasize their belief that answers could still emerge. They expressed their trust in the investigative agencies and reiterated that they hoped new information would eventually explain what happened. Their long-term resilience remained a consistent theme in their public statements. The family's voice has remained one of the most recognized aspects of the case. While investigators base their work on verified evidence, the family's perspective adds emotional context to the timeline. Their statements, challenges, and hopes form an essential part of the story leading into the next phase of the timeline, examining the major leads investigators have addressed over the years. From the earliest days of the investigation, several reported leads emerged that captured public attention. While some originated from eyewitness accounts, others came from observations in the surrounding area. Each lead prompted an investigative response, but not all resulted in verified findings. Understanding the major leads and how investigators approach them offers insight into the challenges faced throughout the case. One of the first widely known leads involved a red or maroon Toyota pickup truck with ladders on the back. A witness reported seeing the vehicle in the area on the day Summer went missing. Investigators quickly asked the owner of the truck to come forward, emphasizing that the person might not be involved but could potentially provide helpful information. Despite public interest in the truck, the TBI later clarified that investigators did not know whether the sighting had any connection to the case. They explained that the truck's presence remained unverified, and no confirmed link was ever established. This lead became one of the most discussed but ultimately inconclusive details in the investigation. Another early lead involved a report from a nearby resident who said she and her children heard what they believed was a scream about an hour before Summer was discovered missing. The detail was documented and investigated, but authorities later stated that the report did not move the case closer to answers. Still, it became a well-known part of the case history. The challenging terrain around the Wells home also played a role in shaping the investigation's early leads. Search teams considered the possibility that Summer might have wandered into the dense woods surrounding the property. Crews searched steep slopes, wooded paths, and rugged areas with specialized tools and trained dogs, but no confirmed trace was found. The lack of physical evidence in the initial search created difficulties for investigators. Without footprints, belongings, or confirmed sightings, they were unable to determine whether the disappearance happened close to the home or farther away. This uncertainty affected the direction of the investigation and contributed to the need for continued reevaluation of early theories. In the months following Summer's disappearance, multiple tips were submitted from various counties in Tennessee and even from other states. These reports often referenced possible sightings or individuals who resembled the age progression images. Each of these tips required review, but none resulted in verified matches or confirmed leads. Some tips involved areas where search dogs displayed initial interest. These locations were examined carefully, but changes in terrain, weather, and scent conditions complicated analysis. Investigators explained that such indications can be affected by environmental factors and do not always point to conclusive information. In 2022 and 2023, investigators revisited several locations that had been part of the original search zones. Their goal was to ensure that areas which were difficult to access early on had been thoroughly examined. Despite these follow-up searches, no new evidence emerged to clarify what happened. Over time, investigators also received reports related to abandoned structures, vehicles, or isolated properties in nearby counties. These locations were checked as needed, with many being cleared quickly due to lack of relevance. Although these efforts did not yield results, they demonstrated the broad scope of the investigation. Tips about individuals acting suspiciously in the days following the disappearance were also investigated. Local law enforcement worked with the TBI to interview people when necessary and document any related findings. However, none of these interactions led to any significant breakthroughs in the case. Investigators also evaluated leads involving online activity, including potential postings or messages that raised concern. These tips required specialized digital review to determine whether any connections existed. In the end, no verified link to Summer's disappearance was found in these digital reports. One consistent theme throughout the investigation was the careful treatment of every tip, regardless of its source. The TBI reiterated that leads must be approached objectively, with no predetermined expectations. This method ensured that investigators did not overlook potential information because it did not fit an assumed narrative. News reports over the years often revisited the early leads and noted how few had resulted in confirmed progress. This contributed to the perception that the case remained one of the most challenging missing child investigations in the region. Despite this, each confirmed review of a lead served as a reminder that authorities were still pursuing answers. In some years, public tips directed investigators to remote areas far from Hawkins County. These locations were examined carefully, even when the probability of relevance was low. The TBI explained that thoroughness remained essential when cases extend over multiple years without confirmed answers. As 2024 came to an end, media outlets summarized the major leads that had appeared throughout the investigation. These summaries emphasized how many tips had been reviewed, how many areas had been searched, and how little confirmed evidence had surfaced. This reinforced public understanding of the complexities investigators were facing. When compared to cases with clear evidence, the Summer Wells investigation stood out because of the lack of confirmed physical clues. This absence made each reported lead even more significant, since even small details had the potential to shape future steps. Investigators acknowledged this challenge and continued their systematic review process. By early 2025, several leads had been publicly identified as important but ultimately inconclusive. The most widely recognized remained the pickup truck tip and the reported scream, both of which became major talking points in media coverage. These pieces of information, despite being investigated thoroughly, had not produced answers. All of these reviewed leads formed the backdrop for what would later become a new and significant update in the timeline to investigative activity on Van Hill Road in November 2025. While many leads from earlier years did not yield results, they helped shape the direction of the case and positioned investigators to respond quickly when new information surfaced. In November 2025, the Summer Wells case entered a new phase of public attention when the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation confirmed that agents were once again in the field, actively following a fresh lead. For the first time in many months, officials acknowledged investigative activity at a specific location, drawing significant interest from the community and the wider public. According to information released by WVLT News and other regional outlets, TBI agents, along with investigators from the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office and federal partners, traveled to the Van Hill Road area in Greenville, Tennessee. The precise location was identified as being within the 2,500 to 3,500 block, approximately 9 to 10 miles from the Wells property on Ben Hill Road. The confirmation of investigative movement drew immediate attention due to the rarity of public updates in the long-running case. While investigators had remained active throughout the years, Few specific locations had been publicly acknowledged since the earliest stages of the search. This made the Van Hill Road lead one of the most notable developments in recent memory. Officials clarified that the purpose of the visit was to follow up on a new investigative lead. The TBI did not disclose the details of the tip, what prompted it, who submitted it, or how it became significant. This approach aligned with the agency's long-standing policy of releasing only verified information that does not compromise ongoing work. News outlets reported that investigators were unable to confirm whether anything was found during the on-site review. The absence of publicly disclosed findings does not indicate a lack of progress. Rather, it reflects the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. Many long-term cases require careful handling of information to avoid disrupting potential future developments. The Van Hill Road location became a focal point not only because of its distance from the Wells home, but also because of the rural characteristics of the area. The region consists of winding roads, forests, and scattered residential properties. These features made the location relevant for review, even though no public details connected the area directly to earlier leads. Investigators conducted the follow-up visit on November 13, 2025, a date confirmed by multiple outlets. The coordination among agencies demonstrated that the lead was considered credible enough to merit an in-person assessment. This type of response is consistent with how the TBI handles tips that meet specific criteria for potential relevance. Shortly after the investigative activity became public, the Wells family released a brief statement through social media. They clarified that they were not providing comments and had not requested interviews. Their message indicated a desire to avoid emotional strain and unnecessary drama while they awaited official updates from investigators. The family's response echoed their earlier position that they preferred to rely on information directly from the TBI. Over the years, they had repeatedly expressed that public speculation made the experience more difficult, and their decision to step back from press interactions reflected a continued desire for privacy. Following the Van Hill Road activity, regional news outlets published reports summarizing the significance of the update. They highlighted how rare it was for the TBI to confirm an exact location during an active investigation. This reinforced the idea that the 2025 lead represented a meaningful step in the case, even if the details remained limited. The TBI also reiterated that the Amber Alert for Summer Wells remained active. This reminder signaled that the agency continued treating the disappearance as an open case with no resolution. It also encouraged the public to remain aware and report information if anything potentially relevant surfaced. Throughout the coverage, investigators emphasized a consistent message: the case remains active, and every credible lead is followed up on. Their words reflected the approach used since the beginning of the investigation and demonstrated why the TBI responded promptly to the Van Hill Road tip. Although the TBI did not specify what prompted the new lead, long-term cases often receive tips triggered by anniversaries, renewed media attention, or changes in public awareness. In some instances, individuals recall information years later that they did not initially consider important. The agency handles each submission with the same careful review process. Local residents in Greenville were aware of the investigative presence but respected the boundaries set by officials. News outlets reported no disruptions or public interference with the work. This allowed investigators to complete their assessment without external pressure, which is important in sensitive cases. The Van Hill Road activity also prompted discussion about the distance between the Wells home and the location of the new lead. While geographically close, the terrain between the two areas includes forests, hills, and rural roads. Because of this, investigators could not draw conclusions based solely on proximity and needed to rely on the details of the tip itself. The TBI's decision not to share further details showed the importance of confidentiality. When an active investigation reaches the fourth year without confirmed answers, even small developments must be handled carefully. Premature disclosure could harm future efforts, especially if additional information emerges from related leads. Over the days that followed, public reaction varied. Many expressed hope that the new activity indicated progress, while others focused on the need for patience. News commentators reminded audiences that investigative follow-ups can be routine in long-term cases and do not always result in immediate findings. Still, the fact that the TBI acknowledged the lead publicly made it one of the most significant moments in the recent timeline. It demonstrated that the case had not gone dormant and that authorities remained committed to evaluating new information wherever it emerged, even at locations miles away from the original search area. For those who had followed the case for years, the Van Hill Road update renewed attention and interest. Many hoped that the review would contribute to future steps in the investigation. While no conclusions could be drawn from the limited information available, the confirmed activity marked an important point in the ongoing effort. The investigative movement on Van Hill Road in November 2025 became a defining moment leading into the next phase of the timeline. Although no confirmed results were shared, the follow-up demonstrated the continued dedication of investigators. This development set the foundation for understanding the current status of the case and what remains unknown today. As the investigation moves beyond its fourth year, the disappearance of Summer Wells remains one of Tennessee's most widely followed missing child cases. Despite extensive efforts, multiple searches, and nationwide awareness, no confirmed evidence has emerged to explain what happened. The situation today reflects both the determination of investigators and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation continues to treat the case as active. Officials frequently remind the public that the Amber Alert remains in effect, an uncommon situation for a case of this age. This status reflects the agency's commitment to responding immediately if new information surfaces, whether locally or from another state. The present state of the investigation shows that even after years of work, no scenario has been confirmed. The TBI has repeatedly stated that they do not have evidence proving Summer was abducted, nor evidence proving she wandered off. This lack of a verified explanation makes the case especially challenging for investigators. One of the key reasons the investigation remains open is the absence of conclusive physical evidence. Without confirmed sightings, belongings, or other verified indicators, investigators must keep all possibilities on the table. Cases like this can continue for many years when early evidence is limited or unclear. Despite the difficulties, law enforcement agencies remain engaged. The TBI, Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, and federal partners continue reviewing new information as it arrives. Even small tips are treated with seriousness, as long-term cases often rely on details that emerge long after the initial disappearance. Technology also plays an increasing role in the current phase of the investigation. Tools for analyzing digital data, mapping, and communication patterns have become more advanced since 2021. Investigators occasionally revisit earlier files using updated tools, allowing them to reassess information with greater accuracy. Age progression images remain a vital part of the search. The TBI's most recent update, released in 2025, shows what Summer might look like at 9 years old. These images are essential for maintaining public awareness, especially for individuals who may have encountered her without knowing her original appearance. Community awareness also remains strong. In Hawkins County, signs and banners displaying Summer's name continue to appear in public spaces as reminders that the case is still unresolved. These displays help keep the public engaged and emphasize the importance of reporting any information. Across social media, discussions about the case continue, though investigators encourage people to rely on verified sources. The TBI has cautioned viewers that unverified theories can create confusion or distract from actual leads. Their message highlights the need for accuracy in a case with so many unanswered questions. The Wells family maintains a largely private stance today. After years of emotional strain, public attention, and online criticism, they have chosen to limit interviews. Their most recent statement urged supporters to wait for official information and avoid escalating speculation, especially following the Van Hill Road investigation. While the family continues expressing hope, they also acknowledge the difficulty of not having answers. Their statements regularly emphasize trust in the investigators and gratitude to those who remain aware of the case. Their perspective provides the emotional context behind the ongoing search. Investigators have said that cases of this nature require patience and long-term commitment. Even when updates are rare, internal work continues. Files are reviewed, mapped areas are reconsidered, and new submissions are evaluated. This behind-the-scenes work is essential for maintaining momentum. The Van Hill Road lead demonstrated that the investigation is still capable of generating actionable information. While the details of the tip were not made public, the confirmation of investigative activity at a specific location showed that the case is far from static. It also reassured many followers that authorities remain responsive. Despite public interest in breakthroughs, investigators emphasize caution. Not every lead results in progress, and many require review before any conclusions can be drawn. This careful approach preserves the accuracy and integrity of the investigation, especially as the timeline grows longer. One of the most significant challenges today is the limited availability of new information. As years pass, opportunities for first-hand accounts decrease, and early memories become harder to verify. These obstacles mean that investigators must rely heavily on documentation, digital analysis, and recurring public awareness. Even so, long-term cases are not unusual. Across the country, missing child investigations sometimes last decades before a new tip or technological advancement provides clarity. The structure of Summer's case follows a pattern seen in other extended investigations, where persistence remains a crucial factor. For many who follow the case, the question of what remains unknown is central. The key unknowns include where Summer went, whether she left the property alone or with someone, and why no confirmed evidence has been found. These unanswered questions form the basis of the continued investigative effort. Reporters covering the case stress that without confirmed information, the story must remain centered on what is verified. This approach has helped reduce confusion and has guided public understanding of the case. Accuracy is especially important when discussing an investigation with so many theories but few established facts. Today, the case stands as one of the most closely monitored missing child investigations in the state. The combination of national attention, community support, and the ongoing work of investigators keeps the case active. While the lack of closure is difficult, the continued effort reflects the seriousness with which authorities approach the disappearance. As it stands now, the disappearance of Summer Wells remains an open investigation marked by persistence from both the community and law enforcement. What remains unknown continues to drive the search forward. The renewed activity on Van Hill Road in 2025 represents the latest chapter in a case defined by endurance, careful investigation, and a hope that answers may still emerge. As the Summer Wells investigation moves into its fifth year, one of the most striking aspects is how much public attention the case continues to receive. Despite the absence of confirmed breakthroughs, people across the country still follow updates, revisit verified information, and search for clarity. The continued interest reflects the case's emotional impact and the enduring concern surrounding a missing child. One reason the case remains prominent is its unusual timeline. Many missing child investigations progress rapidly in their early stages, often leading to confirmed findings within days or weeks. In contrast, the Summer Wells case developed into a long-term effort with limited evidence, prompting deeper questions about what can happen when early clues are scarce or inconclusive. The absence of confirmed information continues to shape how the public engages with the case. Without verified explanations, viewers often return to official statements to understand what investigators have confirmed and what remains uncertain. This need for clarity has helped reinforce the importance of factual reporting and responsible coverage. The case also serves as a reminder of how difficult rural search environments can be. Hawkins County's steep hills, forests, and remote properties create natural obstacles that require extensive resources to examine. The challenging conditions faced by early search teams highlight why some areas required multiple reviews over time. For many followers, the case represents a broader discussion about how missing child investigations evolve. Over several years, the TBI demonstrated a steady, cautious approach built on verified information and careful review. This method emphasizes accuracy rather than speed, and it has shaped public understanding of what long-term investigative work looks like. The involvement of multiple agencies also contributes to the ongoing interest. With state, local, and federal partners participating, the case reflects a coordinated effort across jurisdictions. The public often views these collaborations as a sign of the seriousness with which investigators continue treating the disappearance. Another reason the case remains relevant is the continued release of age progression images. Each update renews attention and reminds people of the passage of time. These images play an essential role in the long-term search, allowing the public to visualize how Summer might appear years after her disappearance. Public awareness campaigns continue reinforcing the case's presence. Posters, digital banners, and online reminders help ensure that the investigation remains visible. These forms of awareness demonstrate how community involvement can sustain momentum even when few official updates are available. The case also raises questions about the role of media coverage. Responsible reporting provides clarity and summarizes verified developments, while unverified speculation can complicate public understanding. Over the years, many outlets have shifted toward factual, timeline-based reporting to help viewers distinguish between confirmed information and unsupported claims. The emotional impact on the community also contributes to the ongoing attention. Residents of Hawkins County continue to follow the case closely, often sharing reflections during anniversaries or public events. This sustained concern keeps the case in the public eye and reflects how deeply the disappearance affected the region. The Wells family's statements, although less frequent today, still play a role in shaping public interest. When they release updates encouraging people to rely on official information and avoid speculation, those messages help guide the public toward accurate sources. Their voice remains an important element of the case narrative. For investigators, the case remains a priority because long-term disappearances can change suddenly. New tips may arise years after the fact, sometimes triggered by media coverage or public reflection. The Van Hill Road follow-up in 2025 demonstrated that even after 4 years, the investigation can move in new directions. The lead on Van Hill Road also highlighted how a single verified development can renew national attention. Even without disclosed findings, the confirmation of investigative activity prompted widespread discussion. This response shows how deeply invested the public remains, despite the limited information available. In many ways, the case exemplifies how missing person investigations evolve over long periods. After initial searches conclude, the focus shifts to steady evaluation, digital updates, and targeted follow-ups. This pattern is common in long-term cases, especially when early evidence is limited. The lack of definitive answers contributes to the case's lasting visibility. People continue to revisit what is known because the core questions remain unresolved. This uncertainty keeps the case active in conversations, news cycles, and social media discussions. Age progression, anniversary coverage, and official updates all contribute to the ongoing relevance of the case. These elements help maintain continuity between earlier phases of the investigation and the present, reinforcing that the search has never stopped, even if updates are infrequent. Community involvement continues to play a critical role. Residents who display signs, share verified updates, or participate in awareness events help keep the case from fading. Their ongoing support contributes to an environment where new information can still surface. The case also underscores the importance of public patience. Long-term investigations require time, careful analysis, and restraint. Authorities consistently remind viewers that conclusions must be based on verified evidence rather than assumptions. This message remains a central theme in understanding the case. As the investigation stands today, the focus is on what can still develop. While many leads have been reviewed without producing answers, the willingness of investigators to follow up on new information such as the activity on Van Hill Road shows that the case remains active and open to future developments. Ultimately, the Summer Wells case continues to matter because it represents a search for clarity, closure, and truth. With investigators maintaining commitment, the community staying engaged, and the public relying on verified updates, the case remains alive. What remains unknown continues to drive the effort forward and keeps the story present in the minds of many. As we reach the end of this chapter, one thing becomes clear. The Summer Wells case continues to raise difficult questions, even after years of investigation. Each confirmed update, each reviewed lead, and every official statement reminds us that long-term cases rely on patience, persistence, and the careful work of investigators. While answers remain out of reach, for many who have followed the case from the beginning, the story represents more than a missing person investigation. It reflects the resilience of a community, the dedication of law enforcement agencies, and the impact of public awareness. Every confirmed step forward, no matter how small, reminds us that progress can happen quietly, sometimes years after an incident first begins. Staying informed through accurate sources remains essential. In a case with limited confirmed information, relying on verified updates protects the integrity of the investigation and prevents confusion caused by speculation. The most meaningful contributions often come from those who share official information responsibly and support awareness efforts rooted in facts. The timeline you've just followed reflects only what has been confirmed publicly by investigators and news agencies. Much of the work continues behind the scenes, far from cameras and headlines. For cases like this, steady investigation matters far more than dramatic developments. And as history shows, long-term efforts can still lead to meaningful breakthroughs. If you've been with Crime Wisp throughout this deep dive series, thank you for being part of a community that values careful storytelling, verified information, and respect for ongoing investigations. Your engagement helps keep these cases visible and encourages responsible discussions centered on facts rather than assumptions. If you want more in-depth timelines, case reconstructions, and verified-only investigations, make sure to subscribe to Crime Wisp, turn on notifications, and share this video to support factual true crime reporting. And if you have any credible information related to this case, contact the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Until the next chapter, stay aware, stay curious, and stay committed to the truth.